Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's time to call the meeting to order for Tuesday, December 2nd. And the first item of business is to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? Any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of minutes from November 18th and 25th.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Our next item is the approval payment of the bills.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Move on to our 535 item. And it's consider adopting a resolution discontinuing the Office of County Surveyor. And we have Brian and our Chief Assistant, Jenny. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have met a few times in regards to the surveyor issue for Clay County, and I was just going to turn it over to Jenny here to kind of discuss, and maybe I will do that. You can hit the points and then review
Sure.
the resolution. She put together the resolution, so I don't want to read through it.
All right,
She did all
well,
the work on it.
as Brian was saying, we've been meeting on this for, I think it's been well over a year, or at least since the time that we knew that Brian Rittenhouse was not going to put his hat in for another term as county surveyor. And so we were trying to have some foresight as to what direction we were going to take or what path we were going to take when that was due to happen. So as you can see from the resolution, we've had a county surveyor since 1986. Some feel that that's a bit misleading because the public may think that our county surveyor is here in the county building and is doing more county work than actually we employ the county surveyor for. And so we started talking about what are our options if we do not have a full-time county surveyor here as a Clay County employee. What other things could we do? And so in researching, I turned first to the statutes, which specifically do not require that any county has a county surveyor. Not like, say, for example, county attorney. The statutes say you must have a county attorney. But for a surveyor, it's not phrased that way. And then Dave Overbo did quite a bit of work as well, looking into this issue and meeting with folks. And I found out from him that there are quite a few counties, 47 counties out of the Minnesota counties employ county surveyors. 2/3 of those are at full-time and 1/3 of those are at part-time. And the rest of the Minnesota counties do not employ a county surveyor. So we certainly would not be in the minority if we chose not to employ a county surveyor per se. So then the discussions continued with the committee that we had formed about what would be best for the county. Would it be best to have a county surveyor, as we have had in the past, that works on the remonumentation program predominantly, or are there creative alternatives to that we could use those same budgeted dollars and at least achieve the same result, if not more results? And after speaking with all the members of that committee and also input from surveyors in the area, it was decided that we could very effectively accomplish the same goals of advancing our remonumentation program, as well as developing our our digital cadastral control system, and that's Mark Sloan's term, but it's the coordinates system that would help them in GIS with some of the things that they do. And so we have a few ideas and a few options of different ways that we could use those same county dollars instead of employing a county surveyor, but certainly going to take more exploration and more discussion. One idea was to put a bounty system in place. I believe it's Wilkin County has a bounty system for government corners. So if someone would come in to record a government corner, maybe they would get paid for that recording. And different counties do it differently. Some counties, if it's a government corner that's never been recorded, they pay more, versus one that was recorded previously, then you pay a lesser amount. But there's a lot of ideas out there, and in the end, what we decided the week before last, when we were contemplating what to come to the board with today, was that we do believe it is in the county's best interest to not employ a county surveyor for the upcoming year, but to continue with that committee and advance other alternatives, work out the details and put some policies and procedures in place to, again, try to advance that remonumentation program and also the county coordinate system. And everybody was in agreement that we should be able to do that and continue making progress in both those regards, not suffer any setbacks. So it was our recommendation to come forward with this resolution to no longer employ by appointment or otherwise a county surveyor effective January 1st, 2015, and then to continue meeting of that committee to develop and implement these new policies and programs with all that in mind. So that's what we're asking for, board approval today, this resolution that's been presented to you. And Brian, I don't know if you have any more.
No, but Mr. Chair, Commissioner Everett was on this committee as well, if he wants to share anything that he observed in regards to it as well.
I don't think you mentioned is that it is a requirement by law, state law, that the corners be recorded whenever they do surveys any place. So we've been in the past paying one firm to do that, where everybody's required to do it. Mm-hmm. And it seemed unfair to me, and also gives the wrong impression, I think, if we have somebody listed on all of our records as a county surveyor, that person probably had got some business, because people look that up and say, oh, this is a county surveyor, that must be who we need to use, and that's not the case at all. They're the same as every other surveyor, and they were not on our payroll, they simply were being paid for doing a particular task, which everybody should have been doing. And I think that this, whatever we come up with now should be more fair, and it maybe will accomplish a lot more because it'll give incentive for everybody to do the job that in the past I think just this person was doing it. So I wholly agree that I appreciate the wording of the resolution. I think it says it very well, Jenny. So
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I think for everyone's benefit too, there was a lot of enthusiasm for using some of the dollars for educational purposes, and rather to educate the surveyors and the engineers that this is a requirement by law, and we're probably going to progress towards some enforcement in those areas. And we feel we can improve the collection of this information by education a great deal.
So is it the intention then to keep the dollars on that line item? Are we still, we're not going to be able to call it county surveyor. Are we switching the...
it'll be for that purpose. But
yeah, it'd be for that purpose, yeah. Because what we also talked about is looking at some of the areas that are not being identified by other surveyors through private means, and maybe there's a township that we need to contract or put out for bids to ask surveyors to go in and establish the corners, because if it's being neglected out there and it needs some attention, then we could use some of those dollars for that. But we put it out for our RFP and see who would do it for the least amount of money.
But this committee is going to be recommending the new policies and programs as it's referred to there. Who,
Right.
once that's done, whose umbrella is that falling under here to guide that along?
Yeah, and that we didn't do today, and we need to put the members of that committee, suggested members of the committee, to bring forth to this board.
Okay.
Because we feel we have some ideas, probably the recorder's office, the GIS or Information Services now department, Mark Sloan, and Dave Overbo, our engineer, who knows a lot about surveying, has really been helpful. He brought the surveyors and the engineers together to give us a lot of this information. And maybe we'd have a committee like that then, and one of you members to...
Are you going to keep this on a timeline so that, I don't imagine there's a lot of surveying that's done when there's a lot of snow on the ground,
No.
but I would imagine as soon as the snow is off there, it's pretty important that we kind of keep this process of the remonumentation
Yeah.
thing going forward. That other name that Mark came up sounds like we've got kind of a bad health problem here in the county.
That's true, but even at the committee, we set some timelines for to get this educational program and solicited and
Right.
to the engineers and the surveyors and try to do it in the cold months, just like you said, get them in for these meetings in the cold months, so.
Mr. Chair, I fully support this resolution, and I would move the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, Kirk, come on up. Dave, come on up. Our next item is the approval of the contract changes to the landfill scale project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stay away from me. It sounds like you have a cold, so,
Keep your distance.
okay, definitely will. As you know, we've been working with the Highway Department on a scale project for quite some time. It's worked out very, very well. We're about 90% done right now. And there's been a couple of changes that we're asking for your approval of. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who's done most of the work as far as the project management.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, based on some of the conversation we had at our Highway Tracking Committee meeting, we thought it would be in the best interest to share a little bit where we're at with the costs on the scale and the timeline a little bit. If you remember, on August 19th is when we approved the actual scale bids. We brought back on the 14th of October an additional bid on the concrete paving. I believe, from what I remember, our initial idea was we weren't sure how well the scale bids were going to come out, so we bid the scale only just to try that. Bids actually came in pretty decent. We weren't sure on the paving if we should still do that this year or not. And there again, I guess I felt like the concrete paving bids came in extremely well. So that's why and how we did those on separate items. As we started getting into the construction of the scale, one of the things that we initially did even before we bid the project was we pulled out certain items that we thought we could do in-house to save some money. Some of those items were a lot of the grading work and the building of the scale approaches, as well as the bollard protection on all the corners. I think there's 18 different concrete-filled 9-foot high culverts out there, I guess vertical culverts, so the scale doesn't get run into in that. So there was if you can see on the spreadsheet there, the initial bid was about $155,000. Concrete paving was another $48,000. There was a couple items that as we got into the project we didn't need. Field engineering and site restoration, about $3,000 of items that were going to be done in-house. There was some scale software that was initially bid that wasn't real clear on how to bid it or what we exactly needed. So as we got into this thing, we kind of learned that the other lakes and prairies entities in our area here are using WasteWorks software, and we got a hold of the software vendor, and between the equipment, the software itself, and the training, it's about $15,000. So if you reduce what we initially bid of $5,000, it's about a $10,000 change, and I guess that's probably the biggest reason why we wanted to come today is explain that we'd like to get approval to move forward with that proposal. Our software then would match pretty much exactly what they have in Perham as well as Otter Tail County. There was an additional yard light that we thought we needed as we were building. It'd be kind of nice to have a little more lighting out there, plus maybe keep a little vandalism away. We got the additional culvert material that we did in-house for the guard posts, and then the gravel. We were going to do a lot of recycling, use some recycled material from the power plant that was tore down. Between timing and some of the quality of that material, it didn't work out. So we had a contract out with Turner Sand and Gravel, about 781 yards of Class 5 out there. Everything turned out really well, but as you can see in front of you, that's pretty much the changes or the additions to the project itself. So the biggest thing, I guess, like I said, would be to move forward with that quote proposal we got from, I think it's Carolina Softworks or Carolina Software, and it's for the Wasteworks software to run the scale.
And before, we were thinking $5,000 for that?
That's what the initial bid was. It got a little complicated as we pulled out. Initially, the current landfill engineer had a pretty in-depth plan. A lot of that stuff we were able to do in-house. We didn't take a real good look at what he had in there for software, and it wasn't real clear. So the low bidder said he put in there what he thought we would need, and then that's where he's giving us a credit. You know, it wasn't really itemized in the bid. A lot of things were lump sum in there, but he's willing to give us a $5,000 credit. So then when we do the addition of the software work from Carolina Software, it's about $10,000 add.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Another one,
Frank?
on the gravel from Turner, is that for gravel or is that for hauling the gravel?
It would be both. I guess it's for.
We don't have our own gravel then, or I thought we have our own gravel?
Well, it'd be the same difference. We'd end up paying the same amount, you know.
Okay.
We do have our own. I guess we did not deplete our own stockpiles. We just purchased it. And he hauled it from down by Barnesville. We actually got a pretty good price. I think we had a better price than, for some reason, he quoted us a better price than he did in the springtime for our road gravel work, but.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you. Get well.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Our next item is the approval of the accounts receivable write-offs for 2014.
Rhonda?
Rhonda Porter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, Sandy and I are back from last week. Last week you approved the accounts receivable write-off policy for Health and Human Services. So our goal was to really work hard on this to get the policy passed and some of these receivables going back 20 years cleaned up before the end of the year. So we are here today to share with you that Sandy and her staff worked with the auditor's office as well to apply the policy as was approved last week to the account receivables that have been on the books. The biggest area is our detox area, and so Sandy does have a handout. We were working on the details, but I think
We got it.
We have them.
You got it.
We
Okay.
have them.
So Sandy, I'll let you walk them through the.
Okay. Well, this is going to deal with the areas of detox and foster care. In the area of detox, again, going back 20 years, so this one is going to be a big one. We had 164 cases that met the criteria for write-off of over $2,000. The total to write off is $1,505,611.97. They go back to 1994. And again, with the detox, this is a mandated service that we already budget to pay. So we're just looking to try and get some reimbursement to help with offsetting those costs. By doing the write-off, then we're going to be able to focus on other cases in the collections area that we'll hopefully have more success in getting some reimbursements on. In the area of foster care with Social Security, a lot of times it takes a while for the Social Security payment to be redirected. And so once it's redirected, we collect quite a lot of money that way, but once the child goes back home, then the parents need that money in their household to support that child, and so it's harder for them to pay back. So in that area, we had 16 cases that met the criteria for write-off for a total of $59,079.26. So we are asking for those two amounts to be written off.
Okay, John, did you want to?
Yeah, I just had one question. Where does it show up on our books now? Will it
It
cut?
doesn't.
It doesn't at all?
It doesn't.
Yeah, and I was going to comment to that, John, because this can come off as kind of the perception that we have to raise our taxes because we're losing $1.5 million in debt. The fact of the matter is we knew from day one we probably weren't going to collect this money. But the government requires us to show it as a receivable until it can be proven that they can't pay for it. The type of client that we're talking about here, you can't collect money from them because they have no money to collect. But the government requires us to show these and keep these on the books as receivables until all options of trying to collect have been done. What we do annually in our county budgets is we budget for this expense. It's an expense to run the detox center. And it's an expense that we have to deal with working with the state when it comes to foster care issues and Social Security issues. Those are things we have to provide the services. We're mandated to provide the services. But the fact of the matter is we cannot collect. But it's like it's like going into a person going to a hotel. They expect that you're going to pay. But in this particular case, the people that come into our hotel can't pay. It's not a hotel either, but I'm using that as my little. So for the public, and I know we went through this last year, and there got to be a lot of public concern because the number was big then too.
Correct.
And I think what people were thinking at that point in time was that we were going to have to raise people's taxes as a result of this. This $1.5 million has gone all the way back, as Sandy said, that goes back to the early 90s, and we're now just getting caught up with the requirements of being able to write these things off. From this point going forward, these numbers should be significantly less. There's still a little bit left to clean up from old stuff, but the process will be improved and we won't see big numbers like this going forward. Did I hit it pretty good?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. What you said was I was going to reinforce as well.
We should be able to write off every year rather than waiting.
Yeah,
It has to be so many years left, but I mean to attempt, but.
there's certain things you have to wait. As a matter of fact, the government requires you in some instances to wait 5 years, depending on the issue that's there.
Right.
So we're not even allowed to write some things off for 5 years, so it just sits there and gets old and old and old. But the
But every
fact of the
year-
matter is we know it's not collectible, but
But every year, that fifth year will come up.
that fifth year will
and we
come up
can-
for somebody.
Yeah.
Yep, correct.
But I was part of the group when we went to write this policy down there, and I think we have it set up where the ones that can be written off earlier and sooner will do so. But again, this isn't something new that's going to have to be added for budgetary purposes.
Correct. Yep, annually, we will apply the policy to any receivables on the books, and we'll follow the policy and bring any to the board that are required to come to the board, so.
So we're looking for approval to write off these amounts.
Yes.
So moved.
We have a motion. There's a motion. I need a second. There wasn't a motion before, was there?
No.
Frank, are you seconding?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Okay, Frank.
What do we, What did we do before, I guess? Maybe we just kept on bringing,
Kept growing. Just kept
I
on
mean,
going.
there was a 5-year thing before, wasn't there? This 5-year thing just start now, or?
Well,
We never had a write-off.
we never had a write-off policy before because
Do we collect anything at all from these
Yes.
people?
yes,
We do collect some?
Yes.
that's why we don't write it off right away,
Okay, thank you.
because we wait and go through all the channels of collection.
All right.
And the government regulations have changed the way now where we have to write off, whereas before, we're not there like they are today.
Thank you.
So. All right. So, okay, any further discussion on the motion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
4 minutes, pretty close.
We are just about 3 minutes before the truth and taxation. There's still a few people coming in, so we'll just take a couple minute break here okay, we will reconvene our meeting. Our next item is regarding the truth and taxation, and this is to discuss the 2015 budget and proposed property tax. And this is when we'll be allowed to have public comment and questions. Before we get to that, I want to read off a few things here of importance, and then Brian's going to go through a little bit of our budget, and then we'll open it up. I'm sure that's why you're all here. So first off, for the audience, we do have the handouts there. If you haven't gotten them, you should pick them up by the door. Property valuations for 2015 have been mailed. Tax notices for 2015 will be sent at the end of March. The proposed budget for 2015 shows a levy increase of 3.99% over 2014. New construction growth last year equaled $87,693,500, or 1.4%. The net levy increase equals 2.59%. Market value of property increased $699,803,300, or 13%. 2014 total value is $6,056,128,900. Clay County receives a payment from the state called County Program Aid, also known as CPA. For 2015, Clay County will receive $2,866,547. And that county program aid is always calculated into when we go through our budget process. The handout shows a proposed Clay County 2015 tax levy of $26,155,639. This levy supports expenditures of $647,835. The difference between those numbers are dollars that come from the state and federal government. The following pages show individual department expenditures and the changes from one year to the next. Real estate tax projections by market value and the Clay County levy history. This meeting we're talking about today is solely for the purpose of discussing our budget, and I know a lot of you have issues or concerns regarding property valuations. The process for the property valuations are different, and this is not the meeting for that purpose. That meeting for Board of Equalization on values was held in June, and prior to that, those in rural areas would have first had your township meetings prior to that. Is that correct, Nancy? Right. So, but this meeting tonight deals with the county's budget and the process of establishing how we arrived at the budget we're at. At this time, I would like to, before we, Brian, let's call you up on that one document that was. So Brian, and I think the people can follow along here, but if you want to just go through this packet and kind of explain to everybody
Okay, great.
the process. My voice is kind of getting bad, so
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you.
If everybody has this handout, if you don't, maybe raise your hand and we can certainly get one to you. Looks like everybody has one or is sitting next to somebody that has one. If you turn to the page 2, you will see a pie chart, and those totals there will make up the $26,155,639. That is the levy that is assessed on the county taxpayer. That is not the expenditures, that's the revenue. That's the revenue we collect from the county taxpayer to support that $67 million budget. And that's where the money goes on that levy dollars that you collect, that we collect. On page 3 shows the county budget. That's the $67 million, $67,647,835. Now, you understand there's a gap between the expenditures and the revenue, and that comes from fees and state dollars and federal dollars. A lot of those come into social services. You'll see the expenditures in social services, $17 million. Also juvenile detention and the sheriff's department's under general revenue. That's a pretty good chunk of money. Roads and bridges, $16 million of expenditures in there. So that's the pie chart where the expenditures go. Then on page 4, you'll see 4 and 5 really are comparing individual departments' budgets. And you'll see up on top, it says 2014 budgeted expenditures and 2015 budgeted expenditures. We won't go through those line by line, certainly, but you certainly have that information to look at. Then if you go to page 6, you'll start seeing some market values, and depending upon what the value of your property is, and you'll see what the breakout in taxes that you will pay on it. And just for simplicity, let's go to the third block where it says market value, and then you just move one column over, it's $200,000. That's the value of a residency, and we'll talk about residence. We're not talking about ag land here, although ag land is very, very important in this equation. But if you look at $200,000 value on property, the net tax payable for that $200,000 worth of property, if you follow that column down, you'll see a figure of $2,389.83. That is going to be the tax bill on that $200,000 worth of property. And in comparing 2015, next year, payable, it is a 5.53% reduction on $200,000 worth of value. Now, if you live in a house and it didn't change in value, your taxes went down by 5.53%. Even with a general increase of 5% or something along those lines, we looked at a couple this afternoon, and the average residence, not farmland, residence went down by 1 or 2%. And that, if you turn to the next page, page 7, and if you go down to the same line, the 200,000 valued property, the county tax that a $200,000 valued property will pay compared to 2014, and the first column that is identified under the red, you'll see county up on top, and I'm trying to go slow here because it's frustrating when a person jumps ahead on these things. And then there's a block down there in yellow, and I'm going down to the third block. Under the $200,000 value, you'll see that the county tax for that is $816. That was a reduction of $137 for a net or a percentage reduction of 14%. You'll see the school tax went down by 11%. And then you'll see, in this case, this is Moorhead's, because it's our largest taxing group. and that's why it's on this example. There's other examples on the next page. But their levy increased by 9.97%, or almost 10%. And then you'll see the ADA went up 26.86%, but in actuality, it was a $5 increase, but that's a high percentage. And then the watershed. And if you want to go back to the left-hand column, you'll see under that, it's 2014 up on top and 2015. If you follow 2015 down, if your $200,000 worth of property stayed the same, and in that same year, you will pay 5.53% less in taxes under that scenario. And I really want to emphasize that this is residential. This is in the city that we're comparing. We know you people that have ag land took a huge hit in valuation increases, and therefore your taxes followed that along with it. It was a shift from the city to the ag land, same as last year. You saw it, and it's a valuation switch. If we go to page 8, you will see that that is the Clay County levy history, and you'll see what it's gone up each year, starting in 2002. And you'll see the last 3 years have been in the 3% range, even though 3.99 is very close to 4. And in the fourth year, in 2012, it actually reduced by 3.71. That's what the county levy has been.
Right, and if I can just add to that, on those numbers, those percentages are before we've included growth.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes, it is.
those are percentage increases before we've
On the levy, yes.
included the growth valuation.
Yeah. This year, the levy increase is 3.99, and when you figure in the growth, it was a 2.59 growth on the established property. And then, if you go to page 9, you will see a history of the budgets. And if you look at it, the first column is 2015, then 2014, then 2013, and you'll see down there where it says total budgeted revenues. That's what we plan to take in. And then if you jump down almost to the bottom, it'll say total budgeted expenditures. That's what's projected to be spent. And then the difference in the bottom is the difference between the collections and the expenditures. And that just goes all the way through to 2011. And then the last page is taken from the state auditor's page, and we handed that out last year too. If you just want to maybe look at the second item on it, it says net tax levy, and it shows the amount of the levy dollars, and then it says per capita, $388.95 per capita, and then out of 87 counties, Clay County is rated 79 out of 87. In other words, there's 78 counties that collect more tax per citizen in their county than Clay County. Now, we know that we live in an area where Moorhead has a higher population. Again, the farmer, the ag land has taken a real hit on this when the ag economy has been what it has been in the past. We know commodity prices are down now, and the land prices are going to level off. So, Mr. Chair, that's the information on this handout.
Thank you, Brian. I do have we did have one written response from somebody who couldn't be here tonight, who asked that his letter be submitted into the record. So at this time, I would ask that the letter from Roger Minch, dated December 2nd, be put into the record, and acknowledge that his questions will be followed up with written answers to them by county staff. So at this point in time, this is when we open it up to your public comments or questions, and we ask that you go to the microphone, and if you can state your name and your address. And again, if we can try to keep this to issues regarding our budget.
My name is Fred Wright, reside in Moorhead. I've just got just for information purposes, I've got a question on the two pie charts. What were the total on those? Because you don't have the total here.
Okay. The total tax levy, Lori, you've got that on.
Yeah, the total tax levy is $26,155,639. And the expenditures,
Is that the 64?
is
67.
67 million.
$67,647,835.
I came up here this evening, I understand what the process is. I've got 7 or 8 notices that I received in the mail last week on various properties I own. And I understand that the valuations go up. You have to come up and speak at a different time. I think, like you said, it's in June. I had one that went up 106%. It's on a property we're doing some repairs on. I understand that. A good share of them went down, which is nice, you know, a minimal amount, 2 or 3%. But I did have one piece of property that went up $4,400 in valuation, and my taxes went up 19.8%. And I'm just wondering why that is. The levy went up. The notices say that we come here tonight to provide feedback, and that's why I'm here.
Sure.
Now,
Nancy, you want to go?
I can certainly take your sheet,
Okay.
and I can go look and see what your situation is. Are you farmland?
No, this is a piece of rental property in the city of Moorhead. And the total went up 19.8. The county levy went up about that percentage. The city of Moorhead percent of that went up more. Now, I was at Moorhead last night. They said that they'd look into it and...
Okay, that's probably the best avenue for you to take.
Okay.
Since it is a city of Moorhead parcel and they have their records. But that would be the best thing. I would follow up then with the city assessor's office just to verify their information that they have.
Okay, but the portion of that that goes to the county, is that levied by the city assessor or is it levied by the county assessor?
It's levied by the county.
Okay, so then
But you,
I'm
that
still
does
correct
seem,
in
that
being
does
here.
seem odd that he
No,
would,
the city assessor puts the value on
oh,
it. You, of course, do the levy,
right.
but the city assessor puts the value on it.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the value.
Is the class the same on there?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I just was asking if the class was the same.
Yes, yes, yeah. So who do I give this information to follow up on the county level?
Yeah, I think,
Why don't you come with me for just a
All right,
moment?
okay.
If you're
Yeah.
ready. Yeah.
Fine, thank you very
all
much.
right, thank you, Fred. Yeah. Who's next? Here, come on up.
My name's DeForest Erdman. I live at 5684 Highway 10 in Dilworth. And I know last year I got my property taxes and it was up like 100 and some percent. And this year I got it was like 151% increase. So, I mean, is the next year the same thing, or I just don't understand how it works.
So are you talking about your property tax went up that much?
Right.
What type of value change did you have?
It was like $20,600 more.
Are you in ag land?
It's Dilworth.
I got a farmstead, little, like 10 acres. It's in the city of Dilworth, though.
Okay, you're within the city limits of Dilworth?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Lori can maybe look at it.
You know, 2 years ago, my taxes were like 400, and last year they were 800, and this year they're over 2,000.
Is there a homestead issue there?
It changed, there was a class change in this one.
But I didn't change it. I don't understand how they did that.
Okay, you'll have to visit with Nancy, because it went from residential homestead to a mix of homestead and commercial.
Do you operate a business out of your home?
Well, I just have my plumbing business, but I don't do the work, or I just keep my trucks there just like anybody else would
Okay.
work out of a
Then I
house.
think this gets into an individual one on the class issue. You might have to talk with Nancy about the class issue.
Yeah, and that's the total reason. But a combination of the value went up $20,000, but
That wouldn't-
the
that
class
would-
change is your bigger issue on this one.
Yeah, the 20,000 wouldn't result in
Right,
100.
well, that's what I don't understand. Who changed it to commercial? It was always residential.
Okay, and that notice would have been given,
That would have gone with that valuation statement would have come with your property tax statement.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
That would have come back last March or April, end of March, beginning of
That's
April.
the one- that's the-
your
that's-
property tax statement.
that's the report where then at that point in time, that's the report where they use that to,
Right.
to be able to appeal your valuation or class. That's what you get in March, and then you go through, for you, your process then would have been to go probably through the city of Dilworth. Is that who, I don't have Nancy here right now to,
Yeah, it would start with the city.
it would go through the
Yep.
city, and then ultimately it comes to the county
Right.
for the June board meeting, so. But yours is a class issue, and, maybe you can work with Nancy and we can see if we can get that.
When can I talk to her then? Is that her right
Yes,
there?
you'll have to get in line.
Okay.
Well, there she is there now, so. Nancy, his issue, the major thing we think is there's a change in classification. All right, thank you. Who's next? Come on up. Here's a familiar face.
My name is Mark Carlos. I live in South Moorhead and Farm up in Felton Township.
Oh, Mike.
And, the ag lands really took a big hit. Valuations are up huge. Taxes are up year over year, huge. Part of that's the ag homestead exemption. But this is not sustainable. And I have several concerns. One, I'd like to see a pie chart on the revenues, how they break out between residential, commercial, ag lands, industrial. And it seems to me like the property in town got a break this year. Real estate taxes have gone down, and we're making it up in the country. And
That's exactly what's happening.
All right, so what's the process for that? Is that a decision that's made by somebody, or is that just a mathematical calculation with the valuation?
It's
Legislative.
It's legislative.
Tell me about that.
This is a legislative process. They're the ones that determine the shift in taxes from residential to, and it all has to do with valuations.
So the state
Yes.
determined that the ag lands would support a higher percentage of the property taxes.
Lori, do you have anything you
Well,
want to add to that?
it's all based on sales. And so there are certain, you take class rates times, like residential is a 1%, ag is 0.5 up to 1.5 million, and then it's 1% after that. And that's trying to equalize all those values. But now the sales have been so high in the ag properties that those values have gone up astronomically.
That's the valuations. We can't talk about that.
Well,
But it gets into those rate classifications that are not set by us, but that are set by the state.
well, and we're mandated to stay within a certain percentage above or below the actual sales. So,
For valuations again.
right, so the state forces us to value, everything according to what the sales are.
So the decision to put more of the tax burden on the farmland versus the residential in town, it's not a decision anybody made here?
No,
It's not a decision made at the assessor's office?
no,
No.
no.
So how do we resolve this? Because like I said, this is not sustainable.
Well, this is the second time, we have had the same conversation as last year, and I think you even hear, and I've heard our local legislatures talking about the unfair hit that ag producers have been taking, and we agree with you.
Yeah.
We agree with you as a county. There needs to be some fairness in all this for everybody. But the market values dictate how those shifts occur.
Okay, so a related question then, as the land values start to fall, will they fall at the same rate? Will our assessed values fall at the same rate? And then is that just going to be one of those things where, yeah, the market value falls, but then you raise the mill levy?
No,
So does the pie chart stay the same?
Yeah, what would happen is if, you know, and we all know right now that the price of your product is way down compared to what it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And so that is now, but the prices of properties that have been sold reflect when the prices were high.
Right.
Now, how long ag land will continue to sell for those kind of prices is going to dictate when that shift goes the other way. As long as the ag prices stay up. Now, I don't think there's any of us believe that it's going to inflate any more than it is now. So for example, if ag land right now maxed out what it is right now, you're going to still see, or the ag producers at this level are going to still be taking the percentages that they are on this pie chart that you'd like to see, and we can try to make that for you.
And then a history of that.
Yeah, and we could. But we should be able to.
We can figure it out.
Yeah, but what happens there, if nothing changes going forward, then really the only thing that's going to change in what your real estate taxes moving forward would be on how county and local governments spend and levy. Your shift right now that you're seeing on your ag land isn't because the county government is spending wildly, and it isn't because the townships are spending wildly, and it isn't because the school districts are spending wildly. It's because you are taking a larger hit because your values in your land went up more so than what happened within cities. That's really what the story is. John?
Mark, if, for instance, farmland stays the same or drops, and because there's been good marketing in the city, residential properties have been, this year now, have been increasing, I would think that a year or two from now, you're going to see the swing back the other way. Unless, of course, people continue to pay these crazy prices for farmland. But that's what it goes by. We're required, our assessors required by law to keep the valuations between 90% and 105% of the average sales in your area. So we're caught on that one.
I understand that. I'm trying to grasp the process. So you assess all the property in the county.
We have
ag land goes up, residential stays the same. Then we're going to pay a higher percentage just because our valuation's up.
Yes, that's how it works.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I know that the legislature has been working on some disparity programs right now and I think they incorporated a little bit of it that was supposed to be, but I think actually the ag producers, I'm not an ag producer, but I believe there was an option for them to file for some sort of a refund or return. John, is that?
Well, it came automatically, but it was only $205.
Yeah, well, but I know it isn't much, but I know it was a start. Our local legislature, we've talked with our local legislatures about this exact same thing. We as a county board share the concern every one of you here have in regards to why would ag land go up 135%? Or taxes go up that significantly as a result in higher valuations, whereas the rest of the populations, their values remain stable in comparison to the heavy increases that you guys have seen in your values. So the way the system works, you get the bigger hit on it. We don't like it.
Mr. Chair.
And the other thing we have to realize too is that it takes a couple years for the adjustments to be made. I mean, we're seeing increases now over land values that will be increasing over the last 2 years or 3 years. And it's going to take a while before it adjusts. If residential property starts going up, Yeah, it'll eventually, show the effect on the tax shift, but it may take
It'll take a couple of years,
a couple
2 or
of
3
years
or 4
before it
years.
happens, because we assess this year and we don't pay for, on the assessed value for what, two years?
Yep.
And it's 2 years later before that catches up to.
Thank you.
Well, John, if there was, Mr. Chair, if
Yes,
there's
Brett.
one more factor that does enter into it, and that is the exemption, or I shouldn't say the exemption, the homestead credit, I'll call it, was $1.6 million, and it went to $1.8 million this year. But unfortunately, if you have, your average farm isn't $1.6 million in value anymore. It's $5 million. And frankly, when that valuation goes up and you jump into that higher bracket, you go from a 0.5 rate to a 1. So when you, let's say that you had $1.8 million worth of value and it jumped up to $2.3 million, you wouldn't just pay that higher value. Your tax rate on anything above $1.9 million doubles because of that. So you get a double whammy there again too. So yeah, the ag is really taking a hit right now, and it'll probably level off. It would be great if commodity prices kept going and valuations kept going, but we know that's not going to happen.
I'm Bill Davis. I live in Dilworth, 609 First Street Northeast, and I've got 4 parcels of land out in Riverton Township. I got what you said. Who sets that rate? I mean, who sets that it goes up double?
That's the legislature.
Legislature?
Yeah.
I guess back on this. Right now, it went up. Some of those parcels went up 45% in taxes. So it's $40 an acre. So you're going to tell me the land goes down, you're still not going to tax it $40 an acre?
No.
Because that's what you're spending. So
Yeah.
how does the taxes go down if you need that much revenue to keep your economy going?
If your land values go down, then everybody else changes, so your percentage of the total gets smaller, so you're going to see a smaller amount of tax put against your property.
Well, like I say, if the total ag value of the county went down, you're still going to have to collect this amount of money dollars.
So what happens then is more will go back to the cities. They'll be paying more for what yours goes down.
Okay.
That's how it
I'll
works.
smile, because you're collecting $40 an acre, and that's what you're spending. To me, it seems like that's what you're going to continue, and you've got to collect it from someplace. And if the state, if the urban doesn't pay it, you're going to raise it across the board.
If we continue to spend the same that we do, and ag values go down, the total amount that we levy is still going to be that same amount that we spend, but you're going to take a smaller portion of the pie because your values went down, which means that even though somebody else's may have stayed the same, theirs is now a higher percentage.
Yeah, I understand in theory, but like I say,
that's how it works.
You still, if the ag values go down, your taxable is going to be less, so then the rate has to go up, so everybody's going to pay more.
But it's going to shift from ag.
It's going to shift.
Right, it used to be residential's paying this much tax and ag was down here. Well, then ag started to go, so then it shifted, so the ag property was paying taxes.
Yeah, well, the legislatures are patting themselves in the back that they passed the big tax decrease for the homeowners. So they did this, they knew what they were doing. It's no secret. Okay. That's
If your farm values go down, you're going to pay less tax unless we spend more money. Yes, sir.
Ronnie Tang, Fleming Township. I hate to make any more comments, but I just got a couple I got to make regarding valuation. One was too on your folder here in your examples here tonight. I feel it's a little bit unfair for you not putting an example of farmland in that example.
Yeah, and we should have.
I thought.
To tell the public at least what our standpoint is coming from where it is.
And I think moving forward, Ronnie, you're exact. I think we will, and I think we should make note of that so that there is a column for that in future years. I agree with that.
I know this isn't the point, and you don't really have a lot of choice on evaluation, but I think you guys, along with the school boards, need to take a bigger push in trying to change this down the road. And I see 2 things. One is hit the legislature a lot harder. First one, like Brian said, if we could double that exemption rate or get rid of it entirely, whatever, because I think it's going to be important for you guys down the road, because somewhere down the line, you're going to need a new jail, which I'm assuming is probably going to have to be bonded. I don't know. Schools are going to need new buildings. Moorhead's talking, DGF's probably 2-3 years from it. And it's hard for me, as much as I support all those projects, if I've got these kind of tax rates at $40 an acre, I don't know if I can vote for something like that down the road. So, I think that's a harder push for it. The other one is part of this on our area right where I am and where Mark's was too. There's a narrow band there, 2, 3, 4 miles wide, that's got the highest increase this year. And that's one of the way that the assessor does it, puts it in the sales ratio in those categories. And I talked to Nancy this spring too after the thing. And, we maybe need to look at a whole different system of how they come up with these assessed values in Clay County, or, maybe you can have the assessor look at that. We talked about going to some type of equivalency ratings or, like some of the other counties around the state or something do. So, maybe that's so we don't have these big swings anyway, one way or the other. But I've been on your side of the table. I know exactly what you're saying. It's only a 4% increase. And, if I was on that side, that looks like a good deal. But somehow we've got, like all pendulums, they swing one way or the other too much. So how do we go about doing this to try to get it? And then that thing with that exemption, I'm sure there's one property I've got hit that because my actual tax went up 97.8% on that 1 quarter of land. And it must have been my swing quarter between the two valuations, whatever it was. And I wonder, isn't this next year going up to 2.1 million or something too? There's an increase coming. So, Ron. Yeah. But that isn't near enough. But it doesn't cost the state anything to up that number. It just does a switch, but they got more votes in houses, so they'd rather get the votes from houses than they would coming from ag land. So thank you to at least consider that, and maybe talk to Nancy too about looking at something different on the future. So
we will. Thank you. Anybody else? Sure, come on.
My name's Alan Nelson. I've got farmland in Alliance Township, and I came in a little bit late, so I haven't had time to study the budget.
Okay.
And I understand that the evaluation of the farmland goes up according to sales, but I guess what I'm questioning is, did your budget go up 25%?
No.
14%?
No.
Okay, my taxes went up 14%.
Right.
So you've got a surplus?
No. What?
The cities, the residential properties went down in what they're paying, and the farmland went up because of the valuation changes.
And the residential went down based upon sales?
Well, in comparison, their property is worth less than theirs hasn't gone up like, in many cases went down, but it certainly didn't go up like the farmland did. So then the shift occurred, and the extra taxes goes to the farmland.
The valuations within cities works the same way that it does in ag land. It's based on sales. And so the cities may have seen a 2 or 3% increase in valuation, but when that compares to a 50 to a 75 to 100% increase in valuation in ag land, we didn't have a 14% budget increase. What we had was a major shift as to who had to pay for the 3% budget increase that we had. So the residential properties are paying less, the ag producers are paying more.
I don't know. The math doesn't add. I don't know how you can increase your budget. How much? 3%?
It was
less than 3.
Pardon?
3.99.
3.99 before growth.
In true dollars, what does it represent?
$1 million.
Approximately $1 million.
Just about $1 million bucks.
$1 million.
$1 million bucks.
Yeah.
And in farmland taxes, how much did they increase?
It just depends on the farm. It got spread. I haven't calculated that. I can do that, but I didn't calculate what percentage of that went to ag land.
More than $1 million?
And I think that goes to Mark, right?
Probably, yeah.
I think it goes to what Mark was asking for about the history of these pie charts that shows where the different dollars come from on an annual basis. These shifts happen right now in the last few years because of the ag values in lands. The ag producers are seeing a higher share of the county levy. That shift will ultimately reverse itself. Those numbers will come down. Residential properties taxes will go up. It has to deal that way. It has to work that way.
In my lifetime?
Well, that's going to depend on how much you guys keep selling your ag land for.
All right, on your help.
Thank you.
Sure, come on up.
Ray Johnson, Mullen Township. These questions might not be maybe what you want to hear, but Brian, we call our legislatures, tell them, what we want, what our ideas are. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, is there another avenue, Minnesota Township Association or something like that? They're a strong advocate for townships, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we utilize Association of Minnesota Counties, and the Rural County Caucus is another advocate for rural communities.
Are they used do we use them as a county? Okay, so I would just like to echo the credit or homestead credit that you were talking about, how that is not staying in pace with the jump on the revenue side. And I would just like to ask that when we talk about putting more pressure on, I think the voice from a county to this association to echo those concerns carries more weight than Ray Johnson on the telephone. And I'm not saying you're not doing that. I just would ask that if we could just do more pressure at the county level, because I think it means more when the voice comes from the county level than from Ray Johnson on the telephone.
And we don't disagree with you on that. We're a member of an awful lot of groups at the county level, and one of them, and Commissioner Whalen serves as our representative on the MRCC, which is known as the Minnesota Rural Counties Caucus Group, and I think it's 30-some member county groups right now, and we form together issues that are important to rural counties within the state. You have to remember that there's some metro counties who don't like what we would like to see happen. You got to remember that too, that there's some metro counties who ag isn't as important to them. But we do try to take advantage of every agency that we can that can work on it for your benefit, for what you want to see done. It just doesn't always work. John?
And every year also we see that there's a greater influence on those who are just representing residential properties than farmland properties, because the numbers are shifting, so the metropolitan area is got more numbers than the rural areas. But that doesn't change the fact that we do have to continue to advocate for this change. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on our budget? Somebody raised the question. I think it was Alan raised the question about how much was our actual budget increase, and our budget increase was roughly $1 million. And keep in mind that $1 million really goes to primarily two components of our entire budget. Our budget is primarily made up of employees working for us to provide the services that you need to have, whether it's in the county roads or in social programs or in public health, sheriff's department. And the vast majority of that $1 million goes to simple cost of living increases, and probably the single biggest one that we have is health insurance costs. All of our health insurance increases that we have, that our county employees get, we split that difference with them. They pick up half the cost of any increases, and we pay half the cost of increases. Those are in contracts that we have with our unions. So that's where the majority of that $1 million actually goes. And there's been some years where this board has refused to even give our employees cost of living increases when times were really tough here a few years ago. Our county employees went, I think, 2 or 3 years without any cost of living adjustment whatsoever. But we've certainly felt that with the change in the way things are going, if you see the market conditions and what's going on right now, cost of living is going up, and we need to make sure that we can keep a good employee force working for us. So, yes, sir. Alan again.
Real quick, I mean, you've got unallocated general that has increased $700,000.
Yeah, and do you want to explain that?
Yeah, over 400,000. We kind of, in the beginning, we lump our health insurance into that area, and so over $400,000 of that was our health insurance increase.
It's in that line item.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan.
Can I ask another quick question on the budget then, or
Sure.
two? Is there anything in there for a new jail? Do you put anything in there?
Yeah, well, Ryan, we've been, the last year or so, we've had a committee working together to come up. There's no question in anybody's mind, at least here, there's some people who don't think we should build a new jail, but the fact of the matter is we do need a new jail. And over the past year and a half, we've had a finance committee that's been working on how can we raise the revenue to pay for this without having to see these massive tax increases on the real estate taxes. So we've already made commitments with retiring bonds that we do have, that of taking 75% of those things that are paid off and setting them aside, so that there's already significant dollars that are going to be able to be put aside that will not have an impact to you as property owners. Had we not done it, Ronnie, I got to be honest with you and say you might have been able to see a tax decrease. But the fact of the matter is, what we hear mostly is, you know what, just keep our taxes stable. In your case right now, those of you in this room tonight, your taxes aren't stable, and we understand that. But by and large, we want to try to, you've been involved with it, you understand it. And then we've had some opportunities in some other areas where we're receiving new revenue. We're receiving new revenue now as a result of some of the wind towers that we have in certain parts of our counties. And we've actually designated some of those wind tower dollars to go towards a new jail. So we've done some things, and plus we have added a little bit in our levy each year. I think it's like, was it $50,000 per year that we last year and this year that we put in just to start that planning process. But our goal is to try to do this and build this with as little impact to the real estate tax as we can.
The other thing, this is a proposed levy. Is that most likely what you're going to adopt, or is that potential you're going to lower it?
This is the maximum now that we can levy. We do have the option of going down, but not up. And right now, all indications are we've been asking for monthly updates from our administrator, and as long as our reports stay with the consistency they've been through the end of the year, it's likely we will adopt it as it currently stands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anybody else tonight? Sure.
I'm Ronnie Junk. I got 3 smaller parcels of land, and one is on a creek that's got only, it's an 80, and it's only got 50 acres of farmland, and I got 16 and a half that I got CRP in, and it went up 14.7, and my other went up 14%. And last year, a fourth of it drowned it out because the creek goes through there. Now, why would that go up more than the good farmland?
Yeah. That again, we need to have Nancy for that one. That one, John, is that what you said your name was?
Ron.
Oh, Ron, okay. Ron, I think, Ron, that's an individual question that we should maybe have you talk with our assessor on. I can't give you an answer to that one here. She's probably got an explanation for it.
It's so much lowland that.
Well, then maybe that classification needs to be looked at.
Okay.
Okay? But we'll, Nancy, maybe if you can make an appointment or see Nancy tonight.
Okay.
She's out working with somebody else right now, but. Nancy Gunderson is her name, Ron? Okay. Anybody else tonight? One last chance. Anybody else? Okay. Well, yeah, okay, well, we still have, we have just a little bit of county business to do prior to this, but for those of you who are here for that purpose, thank you for coming, and we know you have legitimate concerns. We don't disagree with where you're at. Those of you who had made suggestions, like your suggestion about charts, I think we'll see what we can work out and get those, but...
Also increase lobbying. Increase lobbying.
And the increasing lobbying efforts, and we have a new commissioner-elect in our audience tonight. She's been taking notes as well, and she'll become part of this to lobby further. And she actually she's also from an ag-producing family, so thank you for coming. And you can certainly stay for the rest of our boring meeting if you want. But. All right, we'll move on to our committee reports. Grant, I'll start with you tonight, if you're ready.
Sure, I just had the law library yesterday, and everything's good financially with the law library, but we're still struggling to find a part-time law librarian. We're making headway, but not real rapidly, so hopefully in the near future we'll have a law librarian to announce. Had a jail committee meeting today, and we just talked about that a little bit, but we're still in the process of finding ways to pay for the new jail, and we're also putting together a new committee to look at the actual construction and jail itself for the near future. So that was it for me.
All right, so I'm going to jump across. Frank, you ready?
No report.
No report. Wayne.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, December 2nd, this afternoon, Moorhead Planning Commission, there were two items. The one item that of interest is a request by the City of Moorhead to amend the official zoning map and rezone properties within the Oakport Township Track 2 annexation area, and that went through without any discussion at all. It was all taken care of by staff ahead of time, and it went very smoothly, and that will now be forwarded to the City Council. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John.
All I had was a 4 p.m. meeting today for the Historical Society's campaign committee to working on this, raising money for this exhibit. That was it.
All right. Okay, let's see. I had I'm thinking what happened after last Wednesday. We had the Perm Solid Waste meeting. That meeting, they got to figure out a way to do something about their amount of paper for their meetings.
Should recycle it.
This is the agenda packet for the Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority. We have to do something about that, Kurt. If we're going to be having meetings like this, we don't need to be having this kind of paper to waste away, especially when we had such a limited agenda. But it was a good meeting. They're still having some problems with the new burner they put in. There's some discrepancies there. One of the things that's near and dear to me, of course, is reporting and finances and stuff like that. And there was a lot of discussion on their reporting formats and things like that. And I got right in there and made some suggestions, and hopefully I think we'll improve on some of their reporting processes moving forward. And then, oh, by the way, then of course we did have the discussion, the same discussion that our SWAC committee, the Clay County Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting had regarding the designation plan. And that's going to be moving forward. We're looking at having a master plan through the Prairie Lakes group, And then what would happen is it would come back to each of our counties for adoption and approval of that designation plan. And then each county then, or that would be an ordinance. And then each county then would have to adopt a plan that would coincide with the ordinance. So we're probably looking at that coming back to the county board sometime probably in January, Kirk, by the time.
I'm hoping we could get it done the 23rd.
Oh, right before Christmas, huh? Good luck with that one.
With your help.
Oh, with my help, okay. Well, I don't know if we'll be ready, but it's, because it's a significant issue, but anyway, well, we can maybe do the approving the designation plan, but our own policy is going to have to probably be in January.
Right.
But that was a big issue there. Then Commissioner Whalen did talk about our jail. We met as a jail financing committee today, but really the subject turned to reviving what will be our jail building and operations committee. And I asked our administrator to pull out the old group who was on that committee. And there's obviously, there's new judges, there's new commissioners and others. And we've established today a list of people that we would like to have be involved with that committee with us. And I have asked the administrator to have that available for our board to approve on the 16th of December. And so then we'll be moving forward, and that's going to get into more of what would our jail look like, what does it need to look like now, and then how can we plan for the future for that to grow as time goes on. It'll be a long process, and we're hoping a timeline can be in 6 months. We'll have an idea of what we're going to need. That's the goal. That's all I had. So, Brian, it's your last, but not least.
Least.
But not least.
Well, I'll tell you, first I'll start off by, Kirk Rosenberg talked to me about your meeting over in Perm, and he said he was very proud of the way you handled yourself. You had a lot of the right questions to ask and felt that you really added a lot to the meeting. So he felt good about that. So.
Butter.
No, I know, but he's that type. Anyway, on Thursday, we have set up a management meeting. We have a presenter coming into the highway department for 3.5 hours in the morning, starting at 8:30, 12 o'clock. It'll be in their break room. And we have it for our managers, and would like to extend an invitation to you commissioners if you wanted to attend that as well. So it's on management. We're going to have some training for that. We normally have a managers meeting the first Thursday of every week, and this time we're going to have a presenter in, the same presenter that we use for our supervisory training. We've changed the topic a little bit, and he's going to come in and present for 3.5 hours. So
That's this Thursday?
that's this Thursday.
Where at?
At the highway department,
What time?
Starting at what time?
8:30.
8:30.
And we did have a meeting last week in regards to juvenile detention and what we do with some adult offenders, and that we work through social services and where they're placed and things like that. We had that meeting as well, and I talked a little bit about that. Had a conference call, reference strategies and different things on the diversion project. There's quite a bit of an election difference and asking for dollars through the construction dollars through the Corps of Engineers and things like that. It was on just, again, strategies of how to go about that. We had some personnel meetings reference the 4 new hirees that the board approved for the juvenile center, and pushing forward with that, making very good progress in regards to that. Had some meetings with maintenance in regard to some supervision, training issues with Joe. We had a couple of meetings, I only think one since our last meeting, a reference to detox staffing. You're going to hear more about that. They've turned away quite a few people, clients, that because now they're bumping up against that tent bed numbers, and they're having some problems with staffing and things. So you're probably going to see a proposal coming forward in the near future from Kathy, reference staffing detox center and the funding and things along that line. I think it makes some sense of some improvements there. They also are going to be coming, they said that their security cameras over at Detox are 20 or 28 years old, and they want to do some updating on there as well. Had spent a fair amount of time today on home monitoring issues and costs and who pays and who determines who the vendors are for home monitoring and things. And we've had the courts involved and the county attorney's office, and whether we'll just get everything settled on that or there will be some need to see some board action. We'll see about that later on. Lori and I and Nancy spent a little time on TNT prep, I guess, over the last week. We had a couple of meetings in regards to putting together the information that hopefully was valuable tonight. And you've already addressed the jail finance meeting that we just had this afternoon. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Brian, I noticed today that the Morehead City Council had approved the budget for the diversion authority.
Yes.
2015.
That'll be on the agenda for next Wednesday.
Right. Very good. Okay. With that being said, Ricky, anything else?
Your meeting is next Wednesday,
Okay. Quick go down, paper, right?
Sometime.
All right. We'll be adjourned.